So just to kind of introduce myself, I am Gretchen. I'm going to be your host today for this webinar. I am a doctoral student at Oregon State University, but I am based in New Jersey, and I am one of the CRLL stewards. So just as kind of a quick rundown of our agenda today, we're going to basically go through with a few introductions, just because, again, this is kind of designed to be interactive, and we want everyone to be able to feel like they know who else is here and just is going to be able to chat with Dr. MohdZain. So we're going to go through and kind of have a dialogue, a little bit of commentary from our leadership commentator today, and then we're going to go from there. So I will ask Dr. MohdZain to introduce themselves first, and then we'll kind of go around.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for having me here. Before we go on, I've been having chest congestion for a few weeks now, and it doesn't seem to get away. I've been on antibiotic, but it doesn't really. So I may be coughing quite a bit, but excuse me for that. There's nothing I can do about it. I joined ACA when it wasn't ACA. It was AA. If you go back to your introduction to counseling profession class, before it was ACA, it was AACD. Remember that in your textbook? I joined AACD, but I was introduced to counseling profession it was still APGA, American Personal Guidance Movement, and then it shifted to AACD, and then it moved to. So in a roundabout way, I'm telling you how old I am, but I've been in the profession since, and I was fortunate to come into the profession when I get to know a lot of the founders. For example, I remember I was hired by educator, for example. You know, I met her and that kind of stuff, and Glaser and all these big names. I was in the field and get to know them and be friend with them and socialize with them a little bit here and there. So that was in the middle of 1980s, and I've not left ACA or the profession since. I've been joining every year and that kind of stuff. But that's myself and the profession. But in terms of universities, I graduated from Kent State University in Ohio with my PhD, and before that I was with University of Illinois in Springfield. And then I worked at the Delta State University. Actually, I just finished my first 3 chapters of my dissertation. And my advisor told me, Zaidy, don't go. If you stay put, you can finish in 6 months at the most. But I need money, and I need to, you know, I'm tired of borrowing money from the government to pay for my education. So I took the job in spite of the advice. Stayed there for 3 or 4 years, and then went to Missouri. Stayed there for about, Missouri is Southeast Missouri State University. And then stayed there about 11, 12 years, and then went to Southern Arkansas University, stayed there for 10 years, and now I'm with Texas A&M University Commerce. So everywhere I go is kind of a 4 years, 11 years, 10 years, and now I'm just new. This is my 2nd year at Commerce, Texas A&M Commerce. But everywhere I go, I always go at the lowest rank, assistant rank, on purpose. Number one is because I knew I can get promoted and I can get tenure at a new place easily. So I go at the highest possible pay for the lowest rank, and within a year or 2, when I go to an associate professor, I get a boost, I get a jump in my salary. So my summer pay, if it's based on a percentage, then I benefit out of it financially. But at the same time, I hope somebody asks me this question. Because when I was at Delta State and I was at Southeast Missouri, every year without fail, I always get merit pay. I always get extra money into my schema relative to my colleagues. And then, for example, in Missouri, I was the newest guy out of 7. And the oldest was there for 30 years. By maybe 7, 8 years I'm there, I'm the second highest paid in that counseling program, because every year my pay was up, by ask for that, but I was given to it. So of course, when it's given, I take it. So those are the things that I want to share with you. What is it that we have to do in order to get that route, to get paid and that kind of stuff? It is, but at the same time, I use what I learned in the preparation programs. For example, I'm big on self as an instrument, and that's the whole idea. And I'm big at, say, for example, of all the preparation program, professional preparation program, counselor education is one of the few, or if it's not the only one, that require group counseling. So you have to have a group counseling class. So what that means is we're supposed to be an expert in group. We're supposed to be an expert in collaboration and in dealing with other people and that kind of stuff. It's not me. It's not Zaidy. It's us. So in other words, how the problem with what I see with a lot of my congregation is that they remove themselves, they distance themselves from what they're supposed to learn, the curriculum in counselor preparation. When they get a master's degree in counselor education and they get PhD, when they get into a professoriate, they remove themselves from their preparation. And that's where they are. And then they get disheartened and they don't move up, that kind of stuff. They got left out. So, well, all these universities, I move up the rank easily at every place that I've been. But at the same time, after a while, I move into the administration, leadership role. First as a director, coordinator, and that kind of stuff. Become the chair and then become the dean, and then I resign as a dean because I want to retirement age. When you get a certain age, you want to do what you want to do rather than what university asks you to do. So I am in that position right now. So that kind of stuff. It's a good place. In other words, you dictate what you want rather than university dictate what they want to have you done. And that's where I am. I'm telling your audience, Gretchen, you can ask personal question, you can ask professional question, you can ask any question. I'm not saying that I will respond to all those questions openly. I use my own discretion whether I want to respond in detail or just superficially.
Yeah. Perfect. Thanks.
Introduction. Yeah.
Thank you very much. So I'm going to jump in and ask for folks to introduce themselves. Just if they wouldn't mind just saying their name, what their agency or university affiliation is, and just specifically if there's any questions that you're coming in with today about leadership in counseling or any specific interest that you might have with this topic. So I will kind of let whoever wants to jump in first kind of go for it.
Okay, good. It's a quiet group. Any questions?
We'll work on that.
Yeah.
I'll go ahead and start if no one wants. So, hi everyone. I'm Christian Chan. I'm an assistant professor of counseling at Idaho State University. I particularly am interested in the topic of leadership as someone who is a leader. Funny enough, I just came back from our ACA Institute for Leadership training, and I'm particularly vested in how do we promote and grow leadership, particularly as we think of our roles as counselor educators, supervisors, mentors, and particularly in a way that we think about growing leaders and cultivating leaders that aren't just, you know, going through the counselor education pipeline, but particularly practitioners. The other, what brought me here today too was also thinking about how do you see the parallels between counseling leadership and institutional leadership, going through many levels, particularly as in like department chair roles, dean roles, administration. So just really curious and here to absorb.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
Great.
that's good. That's good.
Thank you. Thanks for going first as well.
Anybody else?
Thanks. You can go.
I can go next. My name is Violetta, and I'm currently in my first term as a doctoral student at Oregon State. I am a school counselor, currently at the elementary level. And I guess my question is, for someone who's just starting out, what do you think would be the best way to kind of, I guess, see what our best leadership, what the best fit is for us? I know that other professors have said it's really important to get involved in the organizations, but I'm interested to hear what advice you would give us just starting out. Thank you.
And remind me, because my first instance is, yes, organization is important.
Mm-hmm.
And I did myself, but as you, it's also important that you get involved in the school setting, in your school district, if you work in a public school or even a private school. And the uniqueness of the school system is this: it is not enough for you to just get involved in the school district at a district level or the building level, but you also have to get involved in the local community, so that issues that germane to counseling and to your client will be addressed beyond the boundary of the school system, you know, and that kind of stuff. And I have I did it myself. I joined, say, for example, Rotary Club is a good example. Alliance Club is a good example. All those, and I attend like a Chamber of Commerce meeting and that kind of. The first few times I went there, they asked me who I am, and of course I'm Asian, so in a lot of places I'm the only non-white person in the audience, you know, attending some like a city council meeting, for example. But I introduce myself and why I'm there. I'm interested. But the emphasis is I want to contribute rather than I want to detect or I want to research or anything like that. Say, I represent a program. I represent my department. So I'm thinking of linking my professional colleague, my faculty, and my student to the community. What can we do? Say, for example, I'm a life member of Chi Sigma Eta. What can the local chapter of Chi Sigma Eta do to a local community in commerce? You know, maybe we don't have to work by ourselves, but we could work together with, for example, Rotary Club, you know, that kind of stuff. And there's, you know, this is the tornado alley, for example. When the tornado hit, you know, why can't a member of Chi Sigma Eta go together and, you know, clear the ground and then, you know, saw the broken branches and that kind of stuff. But at the same time, it is known that this is Counseling Honor International Society that have, and they remember that, and city leaders remember that kind of stuff, and that in a way is a win-win situation for promoting the counseling as a profession. Yeah.
Okay.
That's
you.
a good. Yeah. Ask me a detailed question later on.
Thank you.
Yeah. for Christian just now is you're talking about leadership in different role. Actually, counselor education is really I'm biased. You know that I'm biased for the counselor education, but I think there was no preparation programs that I can think of. I think I'm better than the psychologists. I'm better than social workers because I'm trained as a counselor education. Because our curriculum, our preparation is very global. It's very, in a way, it's generalist and that kind of stuff. So my preparation fit into the schema of things. It's just a matter of how do I adjust myself, how do I acculturate myself. And look, I come from Malaysia. You know, here as an international student, and in a lot of places, wherever I go, I'm not an American. I'm a foreigner to a lot of people, and yet I can move beyond that, beyond the racist, beyond supervision. And those people, I ignore them. I just go forth and I say. But at the end of the process, I get the headway. In other words, say for example, it is not a question of you just work with your department. You have to work with your college level, and at the college level, at the university level. But the point is, those things have to be purposeful. It's self an instrument, but we cannot appear to them that we are doing it for selfish reason. We have to appear to the larger group as we are there for genuine reason, for authentic reason, for the greater good. So that's part of the reason. You know, remember in your practicum with the internship at your master's level, one of the first things that we are required to do, I don't know about other programs, but in counseling education, the first thing that we are required to do is to read the policy manual, the rule and regulation of the placement of the site. We have to know them. So when we get the job as a assistant professor and that kind of stuff, we have to do the same. So we are trained to do that at least 3 times during our program, isn't it? At practicum, at internship 1 and internship 2. No other preparation program is doing that. So why do we ignore our preparation? So when we go to become an assistant professor, why can't we read the policy manual and that kind of stuff, what is expected of them? So when we present ourselves, we present that I'm going to contribute rather than this is what is it for me? You know, I'm willing to do extra for the betterment of the group, and that goes far along the way. Christian, is that kind of answer your question, kind of? But visibility, in other words, yeah, we have all personal issue and that kind of stuff, but if we come across as selfish, as self-centered, the wall is going to close down on us. And that's part of leadership. We have to be open and really open and tolerate ambiguity. But that's what we are trained for, isn't it? We are the only profession that was emphasized from the get-go. We have to be comfortable in ambiguity. And yet, in our profession, we say, oh, can you tell me specifically what I'm supposed to be doing? That's counterintuitive, counterindicated. We were trained one way, but when we do our job, we are doing it different ways. So I'm flabbergasted at some of the counselor educators, the professors that I come across. I said, don't you know that you were trained to tolerate ambiguity, and here you are, you want a specific recipe, what to cut, what to put, and when to put, how much of the heat on the stove. And I said, why do you get your PhD in the first place? You know, and that kind of stuff. So so if we are congruent, if we are genuine, and we are consistent in our way of being, I think we will go far. But based to our fundamental, our training, because go and look at our curriculum. Our curriculum is preparing us to be the leaders. But don't deviate from that. I'm not saying that is but you compare our curriculum, you compare to other program curriculum, ours is better. It's the one how we apply it. We don't apply it. We talk a different game after we are done with our. In other words, why take those classes? Just because it's required? No, they are meant for something. I'm preaching to the choir. Yeah, I realize that.
Thank you.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Whoever wants to jump in next.
Yes.
Hey.
Anybody want to introduce themselves? Yes.
I'll go ahead and go. So my name is Holly Walters. I am also a first quarter doctoral student at Oregon State. I also have a background in rehab counseling. My master's program was core accredited back when that existed.
Yeah.
Not too long ago. Currently I work outpatient at a state mental health clinic. I work with the adult population, but I also supervise the therapists there. So therapists, as well as case managers, peer specialists. And obviously I have an interest in getting into teaching in the future. So I was just curious, we do so many things. We wear so many hats, like you said.
Yeah.
What parts of your leadership philosophy or skills do you bring into the different arenas, just kind of across the board, that you may work in, whether it be at the practitioner level, at the teaching level? What do you kind of keep with you?
Yeah. But the first thing that when you mentioned that, the first thing that entered my head at this very moment is go back to the time when you take group counseling. Okay. What were you trained in the group counseling? What is the objective? What is the learning outcome at the end of that semester or that quarter that you're supposed to have mastered? We are supposed to be an expert in collaboration. That's what group counseling is, isn't it? And the power of the peer influence and that kind of stuff. And we're supposed to be an expert in facilitation. We're supposed to be the leader. I know we're supposed to know to get the hint of who are among the group, among the team, who's going to be contributing and who's going to be an asshole, who's going to be a stumbling block. And then we take one whole semester of that class. And for some, during our practicum internship, we are required to do some group counseling in real life. So what do we learn out of that? What do we acquire out of that? When you mention something like supervision and that kind of stuff, why do you have to endure it by yourself? Yes, of course you are the captain of the ship, but why do you have to row by yourself? What's wrong with asking? I said, because just because I'm a PhD doesn't know that I know it all, And then it is very empowering to encourage people to come and say, oh, I don't know much about this, and I hope you can contribute and that kind of stuff. We are empowering others, and we are tapping to the resources that, when they contribute, they feel empowered, they feel valued. Right. So a good example is when you do the supervision, when you do all this kind of stuff, have you ever thought of going back to your former advisors or former faculty? Could you come and then interact, spend half a day with some of my staff and that kind of, because that enhance your own credibility. So in other words, what you are doing is also being validated. And then if you are doing it consistently, there's such thing as inter-rater reliability, isn't it? So one way of you do it at one point, and you do it on the second point, and so but you involve all these experts. The problem is we always think that we need to do it by ourselves. You name any great leaders in the world who work by themselves. Name one leader that you will know who work solely by themselves and achieve glory. No leaders like that. All leaders have to work in the team, and we have to be comfortable working together. You know, that doesn't mean that we are not ourselves. We can remain ourselves who we are, but within limit. We cannot impose, this is my way or no way. Then you are not part of the group. So there's so many ways of doing it, and that kind of stuff. But the thing is, the issue is, what message do we tell ourselves? Why is it that we refrain from reaching out to the people who we have the idea that they have an expertise? What prevents us from calling them or emailing them? Hey, would you mind travel half an hour to my site and look at things? I just want your perspective. You know, I mean, you have been teaching this, so now it's application. What is it about us that prevents us from reaching out? It is us, our own level of confidence, our own insecurity, and that's killing us.
Yeah, because like you said, if you go back to those basic skills that you use at the rest of your job, just pull that in.
Yeah, you pull it in because the curriculum is already, I'm not saying our curriculum is perfect, but our curriculum is a lot better than history, for example. I'm not putting down history by all means. by or any other field. We are very concerted. We are making the whole individual. But at the same time, our curriculum, especially in counselor education and supervision at a doctoral level, that curriculum is preparing not just practitioner or educator, but preparing leaders and how to be a leader. You cannot do it by yourself, you know. Yeah. I hope I you know, interrupt me and argue with me. So that I'm okay.
That's helpful. It's actually really reassuring because, like you said, when you don't have to do everything by yourself, that takes some of that internal pressure off that I think we put on ourselves, especially being in the helping profession. And, you know, having all that empathy that we carry around on a daily basis, which can be exhausting. So that takes some of the pressure off, and it reassures a little bit that I already have some of these skills. It's just about tweaking and perfecting.
But remember though, it is not just us. Our effectiveness is dependent upon other people who grant us that credibility. How successful we are as a clinician is because our client bestowed on us that professional credibility. If our client tell full of BS, full of bullshit, the counseling will not work. They have to trust us, so they have to empower. They have to give themselves permission that give us that credibility. It's the same thing, and we have to give. So people around us, our staff, our administrative assistant, our members of our team, have to give us that credibility. And how do they give us that credibility? They have to have their own schema of how they validate and how they find the reliability of their experience with us. So if we connect with other, you know, we take consultation, for example, but what we do is that we always think that we have to be the consultant. No, we can be a consultee too. You know, but how many times about we said, you know, we put ourselves as a consultant? No, because we know it all and we want to be the consultant. No, that's not what the consultation course is all about. You know, the tripartite relationship, you know how dynamic is the relationship. So what do? It never seems to amaze me that we think one way, but the idea of the curriculum, consultation is a good example, is dynamic. It's the systemic, the homeostasis is keep on going on. Does it make sense?
Yes.
Yeah.
Great. I'll let somebody else jump in with the next introduction.
Yeah. Okay.
Hi there, my name is, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, my name is Kelly Lampy, and I'm also a doctoral student at Oregon State in my first quarter. I currently work in college counseling at the University of Pittsburgh, where I live, Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. I'm really interested in just absorbing everything today in this webinar, but I am specifically interested in hearing about the importance or influence of your mentorship experiences in your professional trajectory. Just maybe sharing some of those experiences.
Yes. I am, even now, I rely, you know, maybe that's my nature. I gravitate to, for the lack of a better term and without offending people, to a senior faculty. I gravitate to them. I want to learn as much as possible. It doesn't matter what they are. They could be a tenured senior faculty in the program, or it could be in my college or at the university level. But for some reason, I always find things to learn from them. How do they survive? And how do, sometimes in order to get ahead in the schema, in the dynamic of things, we have to reduce and diminish ourselves a little bit and give us some kind of an experimentation going by not what they suggested, but going, because actually, especially if you go to a new campus, you have to learn the trick of the trade. You have to learn what the cultural milieu and how things are done, because you cannot bulldoze your way through, because if you bulldoze your way through, then you will have more obstacle, more resistance. It's just like if you start telling client from the get-go and advise client, this is what the client will not really accept that. The client say, whoa, who is this, you know? You see, the training, our training come into force already. You see, I keep on repeating the same thing here. So our training is that, you know, we have to facilitate, we have to encourage discourse, we have to encourage the living of it gradually, and then after a while, we get to know who our clients are, and after a while, we get to know who are the key players, who are the movers, and then that kind of stuff. And that's where we take the opportunity to point out and maybe to participate, and then to encourage, to empower. The more you empower people who are genuine, people who are really authentic, people who are good, they say, you the one who encouraged me, you are the one who empowered me, even in the committee setting. And then they always refer back to you. Say, Zaidy, you remember when you encouraged me to go to pursue this, to research this and that kind of stuff? Now I have this idea and that kind of stuff. And then one people hear that, the two people hear that, and then the word of mouth spread. But the way it is, the bottom line is this: the way how you carry yourself. You are not going to be, you know, how do we ambition? How do we appoint ourselves? are we going to be who we are rather than we want to, rather than be a celebrity, rather than we want our name mentioned, we want to be acknowledged and that kind of stuff. Just like in counseling, we lose nothing if we empower and we give client credit for having a recognition, for acknowledging responsibility, for I think, wow, that, you know, you good. I'm surprised that you recognize this. You lose nothing by saying that to your client. But the benefit is for you both to enjoy, your client to benefit, and you to move along with the progress of your counseling session. So we can do the same thing in our interaction with our colleague at the college level. You know, remember now, people who work at the university, we are working with the cream of the crop. And then, I mean, that's why I enjoy working at academe, because the audience is different. The audience is really bright and it's kind of intellectual. It's kind of, but that's my taste. But that does not mean that I didn't. Before I became a professor, I work in a community mental health, dealing with sexual abuse, dealing with court system, sending people, you know, working with the court system of recommending people for family reunification or going back to prison and that kind of stuff. So yeah, I work in the school system that dealing with residential placement of troubled kids and families and that kind of stuff. Yeah, that, so again, if only we are cognizant of our preparation programs and take lesson from that and apply what we learn in each of those classes, I think we'll be better off.
Have you found in higher education that faculty are receptive to mentoring early faculty, like new faculty?
It depends on the personality. There are people who, I think in my experience, the people who go far in the field are the people who are humble, who say, you know, in other words, you know, compare versus now that I have a PhD and my PhD is just in 1918, whereas your PhD is in 3-4 decades ago, so you're out of date, and I know it all and bulldoze. And these people do not last typically, you know, because they're, you know, let's face it, do you really want to deal with an arrogant individual? Who do you want to get in contact with? Somebody who's nice, somebody who is empowering, somebody who doesn't, who's generous with praises and compliment, empowering, and then encouragement and that kind of stuff. Rather than, you know, if I'm me, you say, hi, you know, you're gonna cut me off, and you know, you will not give me an ounce of credibility. You know, if it, that's a level. The disposition matters, and because we are in the field that, in order for us to be successful, we don't have anything else but ourselves. How do we project ourselves? We have to be really our emotional quotients, our emotional intelligence have to be superior. Otherwise, how do we convince our client to do what we want them to do? You know, we are trained that way. That's why there are some, in rare cases, we dismiss students not because of their academic ability, but because of their disposition. We say, as a gatekeeper, we say, your disposition does not fit into a schema of what a professional counselor should be. And
Right.
and what kind of person is a professional counselor? We are all in that field. So people should gravitate to us. You know, people people should not feel intimidated to come around us. We are warm, we are nurturer, we are encouraging, we are empowering. Is that what a counselor is all about? It's not a selfish me. I have to get a place. I have to be on a limelight. You know, you have to mention me first. You know, God forbid if you I'm not even mentioned in that kind of stuff, and you know, then I go and whine and suck. What kind of a counselor is that? So go back to all these are basic stuff, isn't it? The characteristic of effective counselor. Why can't we use that information, that knowledge to carry and to be and to adjust ourselves so that we fit into it? If we really want to be a counselor, unless we want to be something else. I get frustrated with junior faculty who's arrogant and all they have is 5 publications and that kind of stuff, and they think they are the best in the world. I mean, but I didn't share that. But sometimes I use my own way to convince them. If you really are a counselor, you would not present yourself that way. If you really want to stay long in this field, and if this counselor education professoriate is your career choice, and this is the way how you go based on my experience of 30 and 40 years, you will not go far. I sometimes I tell them that.
Thank you.
Whoever wants to jump in next, feel free.
Okay.
I think I can go next. Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Oh, okay, perfect. So my name is Julia Karawasi, and I'm also on my first term at OSU. And I guess my interest, well, I work with veterans. I work at the VA doing trauma work and substance use work. So my interest, I'm wondering, and I think you kind of touch on that, but how do we authorize ourselves as people of color, at least I'm speaking for myself,
Yes.
in spaces that were not originally designed for people of color? What has been your experience? What can you share?
But Julia, believe you me, there are times when I attend weddings or when I attend funeral, I'm the only non-white person in the entire congregation. And because I'm the only non-white, it is as if every pair of eyes were trained on me. And I feel so uncomfortable. It's the same thing. And that's on social, on the community. But even at university level, there are times when I go to even at the state level, when I was a dean and when I go to like Department of Education at the state level and dealing with the legislators and that kind of stuff, I'm the only non-white person there. And of course, I speak the way how I speak, you know, but I have evidence. I have data. I prepare myself and that kind of stuff. I am wanting people to argue with me, to have a discourse with me, so that I can refine my thought and that kind of stuff. But when I ask questions, I don't know whether here's my Zaidy insecurity, personal insecurity. I don't know whether I sat there at the table as a token minority, token, you know, I don't want that, because if I'm a token, then I'm not good enough. I want to be sitting at the table because I deserve it. I'm married. I'm qualified. I'm qualified as anybody else. you know. But if I'm a token, that of itself is already devaluing of me. But even in higher education, you talk about racism, you know, you talk about not just racism, you know, things about gender preferences. Hello, gentlemen. There's ladies involved there. You know, what can you say? You know, if you say good morning, gentlemen, you ignore the ladies in the room. And it's the same thing. Of all the places supposed to be sensitive, is higher education, academics supposed to be more sensitive, but we are not. Let me put it succinctly. You have gone through a lot of your master's program. You have gone through a lot of instructors. There are some instructors, you respect them only in the classroom, but God forbid, you don't want them to be your neighbors because you don't care for them as a person. You only care for their brain, what they tell you in class. But even then, you give them a certain credibility. And to me, that professor is not really what the counselor educator should be. Because we should transcend ourselves beyond the professional realms. We should be more global in our being because we are self. That's what the whole idea of self as an instrument is. When I go to Walmart, you know, I'm Zaidy. And who's Zaidy? I'm a counselor educator. And I'm a counselor educator even when I'm at Walmart. Did you see my point? Not just in the classroom, not just when I supervise, when I, you know, telling people what to write in their dissertation, you know, blah blah blah, in a grading paper. No, I am it everywhere I go. So, and that's congruence, that's consistency, and that's being true to myself. So, and you look at the K-CREP standard. K-CREP standard says one of the main theme of K-CREP standard is professional identity. How do we identify ourselves? Why is K-CREP important? So in other words, this is the curriculum, this is the system, this is the training program. So one of the main theme is how do we identify ourselves as a professional counselor. So in other words, we just going to identify ourselves as a professional counselor only while we are in the training program. When we graduate, when we shake hands, when we get diploma, have you forget about that professional identity? You see? So we have to be true to what we commit ourselves from the get-go. You know, professional identity doesn't stop when we get our diploma. It goes on. And that's why it's a career choice. A career means we all have, no, everybody here have 24 hours in a day. Nobody get 25 hours in a day, okay? So we sleep 8 hours. That's 1/3 of the day. The 2/3 of the day is, another 1/3 of the day is working. We work 8 hours, we sleep 8 hours, that's 16 hours. So the remaining 8 hours, we just goofing around. You follow what I'm saying? So 1/3 of our daily life is a choice that we make. We want to be in this profession. By golly, if you be in this profession, make your commitments serious. Why go, you know, why go to a 60 credit hour program for a master's when you can get 2 master's degree for 30 credit hours? You can get 2 MBA, 30, 2 master's degree. But in counseling, you have to get 60. But pay-wise, you get 1/3 of what MBA gets. Are we that stupid? No. we are committed to a cause. We are committed to be who we want it to be. We are willing to go to a 60-hour program and getting paid a third less than those who graduate with half of the preparation we do. You see? So how serious are we about dedicating ourselves to the field of our choice? Ask ourselves that question. And how do we contribute that? How do we make that good, you know, that kind of stuff? How do we, because the way how we conduct ourselves, it would, a good example is teachers. Teachers as a field, as a profession, who decide what's going on in the teaching profession? The politician, right? The teachers can hardly have the voice in it. The counseling will be like that if we don't get involved. Because who are the legislators? Normally, they are good students who do not see school counselors. Who do school counselors see? The trouble student. And they turn up to be drug addict and all these abusers and all those things. They don't, you know, do school counselors really see a student? No. And this A student end up being a politician, being lawyers and doctors and that, and they make policy for us. So how do they know what counseling is all about? Unless we interact with them. You know, I sit every time I talk to the politician, when I sit with them, I started the conversation, introducing myself. I told them, for example, I told them about 25% for the first 5 years of teacher preparation, after they graduate from school, from college, 25% of teachers drop out from teaching. We don't want that to happen in counseling. We don't want students who graduate from counseling program, after they serve as counselors within 5 years, to drop out from the profession, because it takes, the research says, it takes 5 years for them to incorporate all these various theories, all these 10 to 12 theories we learn, and the trick into their schema, into their personality, to be part of them. So if they quit within 5 years, then they don't give themselves a chance to become a real effective counselors. So really, I think we are talking about global system and that kind of stuff. Yes, race matter, and it's so sad that we still, in 2019, we still are living in a system, a schema that the color of the skin matters. And you know, for all you know, I may be too gung-ho, but I hope Trump doesn't say that, you know, go back to my country and that kind of stuff. You know, you never know, you know. But I'm active. I don't take things for granted. You know, when I talk to my legislators, and that kind of stuff, because I don't want to be left out. Yeah, but yes, even in higher education, discrimination is rampant. But the way is, how do you carry yourself? You know, it's just like when you are in a group. You remember when you were a child, you know, when they pick teams, sometimes we got selected, sometimes we get ignored. Throughout life, things happen that way, even in higher education. And that is why if you become professors, the first thing you have to really understand is, inspire goal statement, the mission of the university. Yeah, you have to remember that. But really, what is a real mission of the top university top leadership mission is, in spite of their goal mission statement? What is their immediate goal? And we can adjust ourselves. Plus, because we are an expert, we are trained to adjust ourselves to various predicaments. So we have to work toward that goal. A good example is performance funding, for example. You know, the state says if you go to a public university, you know, the amount of money that the program get depends on certain formulas and that kind of stuff. And then the university leadership says, well, in order to facilitate this, in order for us to sustain ourselves, in order for us to grow, we need more headcounts into our program. So recruitment is important. So if we are smart, then we devote ourselves to recruitment so that we can demonstrate to the leadership that we are doing something that contributing to the overall goal of the university. So for example, right now, you know, I'm not worried about the counseling program at Texas A&M Commerce because my numbers are bigger than and better than curriculum and instruction for leadership and that kind of stuff, you know. That is not the explicit mission goal, but it's explicit from the focus, the priority of the top leadership. So in doing so, in contributing so, I get recognized. So you have to be smart enough, you know. Don't just read counseling stuff, read everything, you know, and be visible, and don't get, don't, you know, be generous. I always tell young professors, you know, it helps if people were to know that we is, for example, Zaidy is always in his office, or Zaidy or somebody else, he's never in his office, because really professors are known for setting their own schedule and in and out, never return students' email. You never know that students complain higher up about us not returning the email or the phone call and that kind. That is a dent. That's a dent. But if all the counselor educators are like that, that's a dent to the profession. So we have to make ourselves, you know, why do we want to be there in the first place? It's our choice. We don't have to be there. If we want, if it is our choice, if we want to be there, make good of it. You know, I'm not intimidated if I'm the only non-white person at the funeral because I chose to be there.
Sure.
Does it make sense?
Yeah.
And even when I got called to speak spontaneously at the function and that kind of stuff, I'm okay. I'm you know, that kind of stuff. So, but that's flexibility. But be cognizant of the fact, and of course, there were days when I went home feeling miserable because, oh my God, I never thought this person is, because you know what, the bottom line is the oppressed people, minority especially, are super sensitive to cues and verbiage and that kind of stuff. The oppressor, on the other hand, is oblivious. They can say anything they want. They say, oh, you cannot take a joke. Why are you so overly sensitive and that kind of stuff? There were days when I come home and I prayed very, very hard. I said, oh my God, please don't let me be in this predicament anymore, because it hurts. It hurts, you know. And for, I think for women and for people of color, my experience in higher education has been, we have to work above average just to stay average. And this morning, at, you know, I'm a morning person. I have a colleague who called me and said, Zaidy, had you been a white male, you will be a president emeritus by now. When I was a dean, one of the not successful story about me is fundraising. Well, who do I go and seek money with? You know, typically wealthy people. Why would a wealthy people give money to a face like this, an Asian guy? All the other deans are white males. And I'm not white. I'm abnormally. You know? I may be passionate. I maybe have a bigger say. And the largest grant I have is only $2 million. One grant from a Walmart family. But you get 1 million, or you get $1,000 and that kind of. Other business dean, he may be ugly or she may be ugly, but she can raise more money. My education, my counselors, my education student, graduate, they can hardly make ends meet because educators are not paid well. So who do I go and solicit money with? So I'm at a disadvantage in that kind of stuff. So that's the reality of it, But if I go and talk to, like, say, a big company like Pepsi or Coca-Cola or Motorola and that kind of stuff, that's a different ball game altogether. Raise the rate, that doesn't matter there. But if you're talking about local, race still matters, especially in fundraising. And how do I specify that? I bring with me a colleague or somebody else. And typically this somebody else is, of majority group, a member majority group, rather than, another minority group. Because I want to raise money. It doesn't make sense, but that's the reality. That's my experience. It's breaking, yes. And yeah, you have to be, if you want to move up in the ladder, career ladder, one skill is fundraising skill. Yeah.
Thank you.
And now 100,000 is not enough. You're talking about 4,000. No, you're talking about million. Yes.
I just wanted to offer it up to Danielle, because I think if you wanted to introduce yourself and share a little bit about yourself, just to give you the floor.
Yeah, sure. Thank you. So can you hear me okay?
Yep.
Yes.
Okay. My name is Danielle Watkins, and I am also a first-year PhD student. My background is in marriage and family therapy. And currently I am working, I'm a dual licensed clinician working at a university counseling center. You may talk about this in your talk, so feel free to defer my question if you'd like. But one of the things that we talked about in our last face-to-face meeting was sometimes, depending on the circumstances, kind of like a fusion of different leadership styles being used. And so one of the questions I had for you was if you find yourself using transformational or contingency leadership styles depending on circumstances.
I identify myself, if you read on, I categorize myself more as a servant leader.
Yeah, I figured that given your talk title.
Yeah, servant leader. In other words, when I ask my faculty or my staff to do things, I am willing to do it. I'm willing to get my hands dirty too. It's not that I'm beyond approach of anything like that. So in other words, I can get my hands dirty as much as they get your hands dirty. So, and there are times when I have to spend more time and effort preparing for something than I envision my contemporaries, my colleagues spending their times on. Another example is, this is a good example, and the counselor educators especially. If we just concentrate on counselor education field and we don't transcend beyond that counselor education sphere, we are losing out. we have to branch out into what education is all about, beyond the counselor education. A good example is performance funding. Another example is advocacy. For say, for me, for right now, in rural setting, there's a lot of addiction. You're talking about families, you know. Everything that happened in urban areas, you know, there's a lot of news coverage and everything in newspaper. But in rural areas, the same thing happened, but it is not covered and nobody knows about it. But addiction is addiction. And the schools district in rural areas are finding it difficult to retain a good quality employees, for example, school counselors. So in rural areas, because they are short of school counselors, various schools combine and share counselors and that kind of stuff. So my point is, people like me, I go out and say, what can I do and that kind of stuff. What can we do to help to facilitate and that kind of stuff. So then I create a program like, you know, I'm willing to teach your school teachers who want to be a school counselor to come into my program, and then you stay and that kind of stuff. And let's talk about special deal about tuition and that kind of stuff. But I'm still focused on school counseling, the counselor education as a whole, but beyond the realms of counseling, going to the community and that kind of stuff, a service. And then I come back to university and this is what they want and this is what's needed and that kind of stuff. We talk about marriage and family counseling, for example. That's my own bias. For example, I see no reason why college counselors at college level, counseling kids or counseling students individually, but not using system theory. Because sometimes kids that come like a freshman or sophomore and that kind of stuff, they come to college not because they want to, but because their parents ask them to come to. So that's an opportune time for you know, to expand the repertoire and that kind of stuff, and encourage family or alumni to come and that kind of stuff. And I see there's an opportunity for that. And I've been talking to a lot of people about expanding marriage and family counseling, not just for marriage and couple counseling, but it's also in every counseling, in every aspect of human life, by using the model, the methodology of marriage, system theory. Because I think system theory is more effective. It's more Adlerian. It's more succinct to me. But that's my bias. Yeah. And people who know me know that I'm pushing it for that.
Okay, thank you. I agree.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do I answer your question, Daniel?
You did. Thank you very much.
Okay. Next.
I'm just going to jump in with a question just because to kind of follow up on something you said, because you said you kind of align with this servant leadership philosophy. So out of curiosity, has that evolved over time, or is that something you've always found yourself aligning with?
I cannot hear you well.
Oh, no worries. Your servant leadership philosophy, is that something that you've always kind of embraced, or is that something that has evolved over time?
Actually, I discovered it, what's working for me and what's not working for me. When I was at Southeast Missouri State University, I was just an assistant professor, and I know in 2 years, I'll get tenured and I get promoted to associate. So you see the confidence. I mean, I'm not arrogant by all means, but I know because I do my homework and I study and that kind of stuff, because I meet all the criteria and that kind of stuff. So it's not beneath me to go as an assistant and that kind of stuff. But at the same time, there's a new program that developing. Regional university in Missouri cannot offer doctoral program. All doctoral programs have to be offered by University of Missouri, but it can take place at the regional campus. But the degree is granted by University of Missouri system, not Southeast Missouri State University. But I say, okay, that's okay. So I volunteered. I want to be a part of it. And I'm the only counselor educator who's really gung-ho about it. Because other counselor educator says, we have enough to do, and we don't, because it's a degree in educational policy and leadership. And I said, well, pretty soon, because in my mind, because you don't know what the future holds. For all you know, that year we may have a doctorate degree in leadership and policy analysis. Several years later, if this is successful, it opened the door for counselor education and supervision. Because in that part of the world, we have a lot of professional clinicians. And why would they want to be a supervisor, that kind of stuff? It might as well give them an incentive to come to school and get a doctoral degree, and they can become supervisor. Give them 60 hours credit and that kind of stuff. So in my mind, always think forward. And then it's not just, I'm using that as a stepping stone, but I'm willing to do the work. I'm willing to go to the meeting. I'm willing to travel. I'm willing to go and talk to the school superintendent of the need of the supervisors. And because superintendent, they are not trained counselors, and yet they are administratively supervising school counselors or the principal. They are not trained as school counselors. And in my mind, the school counselors need to be supervised by a fellow counselor, trained counselor at a different level. So to me, that's a vacuum. So it may not work now, but maybe 5 years from now, if I persist, I may create a degree program and that kind of stuff. So it's always looking forward, and it's looking but pertinent, but relevant to what you are doing. But you also are not working in the vacuum, because you realize that in the service area, there's a need for that. So when you talk, you make sense. And then I go to, for example, I go to alumni, because, alumni has a strong voice. The faculty has less voice at the university, in my mind. The stronger is the students' voice and the alumni. So if you want to push your agenda through for the program change and that kind of stuff, you go to the students or you go to alumni. And you pick the powerful voice that have the president's ears. So that's the game we play. And you have to know, you have to be suave enough to do that, to understand that. So that's why I say, if me is all about me and that kind of stuff, you're not going anywhere. If you're arrogant and and you are standoffish and you think the world of yourself, even the fly will not stop at you. I mean, even you are so good that even the mosquitoes refuse to bite you and that kind of stuff. That is no good. You are just human being like everybody else. So if you talk sense, if you talk in context, if you talk more into how your ideas and how your being, your presence is contributing to the larger goal, you are more likely to get reception, credibility, and assistance from when they are needed. Does that make sense? Yeah.
It does. Thank you. I'll open up the floor to anyone.
That's part of the leadership, that kind of stuff. That's part of the role. Yeah. Yeah.
Thank you. I'll open up the floor to anyone that has any questions or.
Yes, ask me question. Ask me a pointed question. Let me sweat.
Oh, Julia, I think your mic may be off. I see your mouth moving though.
Yep. Can you hear me now?
Yep.
Much
Yes.
better? Okay.
Yes.
So I was saying I'm not sure how much this question is going to make you sweat.
Yeah,
But,
you're in a car. You're not driving, are you?
yeah. No, I'm not driving, but anyway, the story's too long to share why I'm in a car. So you mentioned using yourself as an instrument and also transcending the role, either the position or the role that you find yourself in. Can you share a little bit about that?
Self as an instrument?
Yeah. Or
Yeah.
transcending your role.
Yes. For example, you know, when I'm become a department head, you know, a department leader, you know, I supposed to represent my department, irrespective whether I like my faculty or not, but I have to represent them, you know, kind of to others. It could be to the dean, could be the provost, the university, but outside of the department, I'm the chief ambassador for that department. Now, but I also go outside of campus. Say, for example, in the community, I go to the school to visit and that kind of stuff. For example, there's a death in the school, like the shooting or any exit teachers and that kind of stuff. There are occasions when I go there, self as an instrument, you asked me that. I myself, because I was a clinician, I provide crisis intervention to the grieving, shocked teachers and staff and students myself. There were times when I wish, because it happened too fast, I wish I could have brought a few students with me. But when those kind of things happen, it happened at the spur of the moment. You know, but because of your relationship with the school says, hey, Zaidy, we just heard we got this accident and the teachers are having some, you know, crisis and that kind of, would you mind come and facilitate? That is self as an instrument. But at the same time, there are times when as soon as I receive that, I give a call to my colleagues. And it's sad to say that not all colleagues are willing to do that. They give reasons not to come to the school. And there are students who are willing to come and observe me in action, but there are students who do not. But that didn't happen only once. And if it happened again and again and again, you talk about the reliability and that kind of stuff. And after a while, you quit calling all this person who keep on saying no. You only call those who are willing to do that, you know, that kind, because it involves driving, it involves, you know, but we don't know how long we'll be at the school and to provide the crisis. That is a separate instrument. But the value of it is that they realize that, hey, this is a foot in the door. They say, if you feel better after seeing me and that kind of stuff, if this is the quality of service and that kind of stuff, I want to learn from him. I want to learn from his department of the thing like that. Maybe I could come here. So in other words, competition, you know, because in Dallas area, there's a lot of universities offer counselor education program. So how do I emerge as unique, as something? Because I want people who come here because they want to come here. I don't want they come here because this is the last place that accept them. That doesn't make sense. I want my program to be the first choice, and my student to be, when they graduate from my program, to be the first to be hired, and that kind of. So I have to be congruent. And you see, you go back to introduction, the concept of introduction to counseling material in that first class. You talk about congruent, you talk about consistency, you talk about self-reflection, grow, and that kind of stuff. And the risk, of course, you know, but I'm not shy, you know. I mean, I'm willing to do that. I travel extensively, even now overseas, you know. I went to I went to prison, for example. I talked to the warden and I say, hey, you know, what can we do to help you? What are your issues? And that it's not that I put my nose where it doesn't belong, because I want to learn from you. What are the things that you do? And listen, maybe I can help. Maybe I could, because I'm not. That's in a way that's marketing. In a way that's reaching out. In a way that's opening, establishing repertoire, rapport building at the system. And you know, the whole thing is like an onion. You know, like as a student is a layer of onion, the community is another layer of an onion, you know, the university is another layer of onion, but it's all onion. You see the metaphor there? And we cannot say, I just want to deal with students. I just want to deal with university community. We have to deal with everything, because we cannot live in isolation. You know, university cannot exist, you know, in the silos. You know, we are as good as our former student, our graduate, and our community. And without them, we are nothing. So that's contextual. That's why self as an instrument. That's why we have to be consistent. That's why when I ask applicant, what is it about you that want to be a counselor? Then I have to be convinced that you are trainable and you are genuine and authentic in your desire to be a professional counselor. And then my idea of what professional counselor and the applicant fit, or I can have room to mold and nurture you to fit. If I have a sense that, you know, we are two polar opposite, then I could say, maybe this is not the field for you. Maybe you should become a psychologist. You know, if you want to start telling people what to do, then, you know, go somebody else. You know, not in my program. Something like that, you know. But that's another thing about you know, because I can tell people just like that, factually, and they don't take offense, which is good. Yeah.
Thank you.
I had a quick question.
Yes.
And I know that as counselor educators, we're always evolving, and our experiences definitely play a role into our leadership philosophy. But when did you feel like you had really come into your own leadership philosophy? Like, was it a couple years in, or was it like many years in, like a decade in?
I really don't know. You talk about the timeline, you talk about whether you're asking me a question is, when was the lightning strike you?
Yes. Like, when was like your big like aha moment?
That's a good metaphor, isn't it?
Yeah.
I don't know when that lightning struck me. I think I've been a leader since I was very young, you know, like, and believe it or not, I was Eagle Scout and a Boy Scout and that kind of stuff. I've been always being a leader, even at school, and even in young in a primary school, I was the class president and then that kind of stuff. It's always been somebody who's up front, but I'm not. In terms of academe, I think part of it is because I know who I am. Well, let me ask you this question. So far, for an hour, almost an hour and a half, what do you see in me? Then I can explain the way I want to explain. What do you see in me?
I see someone that's very confident in, in his knowledge, and also I think you're humble in sharing your experiences and the things that you've been through.
Talking about humble, yeah. and then accept that we don't know it all, and accept that we need others to advance. We cannot advance by ourselves.
Right.
You know, so a good example is if you need an ugly person to know that you are beautiful. Otherwise, how do you know you're beautiful? You know, you need you need to experience misery in order for you to know happiness. You know, because that's very Adlerian in a way. You know, there's social conditioning and that kind of stuff. The confidence is something to do with, people say self-esteem, but I think it's more of knowing what you want and feeling comfortable in your own skin. So in other words, I don't have to have accolades, praises, and approval. I mean, it doesn't matter whether you like me or not, you know, but when I do my job, I will do the honest job. I'm not doing my job to impress you. I'm doing my job to soothe my own self. You know, I mean, it's for me. In other words, I want to make sure that I do a good job because I want to sleep good at night. I don't want to have this. You know that when we see clients, there are times when the case linger in our head. Have we said enough? Have we done enough? And that kind of stuff. That was the years that I was a clinician. And it's the same thing in higher education. And when you deal with student or problem student, have I opened up? Have I helped enough? And that kind of stuff. Have I been sincere enough, or ego get in the problem and that kind of stuff? Because a lot of time there's something in us. Maybe we don't. Maybe we wake up on the wrong side of the bed and we get into the bad mood, and then the rest of the day we're in the bad mood and that kind of stuff. So, but the good thing about being a counselor is that we are trained to do self-reflection. So in other words, when we do basic counseling skill or advanced counseling skill, there are two layers going on at the same time, you know. What the clients hear, what we say, we didn't say, what we do, what we didn't do. But at the same time, at the back of our head, there's a lot of things that's going on in our head. And we say to ourselves, the client didn't know this. Oh, what the heck? Oh my God, what do I say next? Oh no, now I'm stuck, you know. Now I'm asking too much question. And but the client didn't know that. So that's why we grow faster than the average. And that self-reflection, we are trained to do that. So because we are trained to do that, extend that training, even though we finish our degree in our daily life. And there are times when I have a serious conversation with a faculty who say, Zaidy, I need you to pursue a salary adjustment for me. You know, I'm getting too low of pay and that kind of stuff. And there's conversation, and I said, you know, what would happen if this doesn't work, and would you find a job someplace else and that kind of stuff, you know. But after the conversation is done, you know, I always ask myself, have I done enough to help, or maybe how does Zaidy personal liking to that person interfere or help? You know, self-reflection. It would do you the world of good if you continue with self-reflection. And that is what self as an instrument is all about. And we are so trained to use self as an instrument. There's no reason why we should fail using self as an instrument. You know, that's why I'm so gung-ho about linking how we are prepared, our curriculum, and the way how we are right now. You know, I think I have the best of the training.
I'm going to have to jump in as my role as a timekeeper and host.
Yes.
Yes. Just to the fact that we are at the end. So I just wanted to offer up if anyone has any kind of quick final reflections, just to acknowledge that we are kind of at our ending time. But
yeah, but also before I forget, but continue be advocates for the profession. And how do you advocate for the profession is, for example, get into Chi Sigma, get into the American Counseling Association, all those branches, but be true, be genuine. And because if you fake, people can see it, you know. And if you're authentic and it comes from the heart, people value it more.
Thank you.
And you go far if you are authentic. That's my point. Okay, any feedback, any comment? Like Gretchen was saying.
All right, I think there was a comment in the chat. Let's see. Thank you to all of us. So yes, thank you very much, Dr. MohdZain.